All right, so let's get some analysis on this. And for that, we are joined in studio by energy expert and also former Eskom Executive Manager, Professor Vally Padayachee. Good evening to you, Prof. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Naledi, to you and your viewers and listeners. And I'm glad to be back, albeit the circumstances.
Yeah. I don't think anyone, and I've been saying this, I don't think anyone saw it coming. When I woke up this morning and saw, the feeds. In fact, when I woke up, my lights were out, and then the feeds were social media. I thought, no, it can't be for a while. Were you expecting that we could, at this point, find ourselves back at stage 6?
No, actually, when I was told, normally I get this news, given the roles that I play in other roles. When I got this news, because this was a sudden load shedding. It happened within half an hour from units tripping off to load shedding being declared, which is unique because generally you're given reasonable warning. But this happened, my understanding, 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and 5:30 load shedding was called. So I was watching cricket, the Champions Trophy International, and when I got this call, and then the rest is history. Yeah,
and yet here we are. I think for a lot of South Africans, they need to understand, and we certainly listen to the ministers. He explains, incredibly technical. A lot of South Africans just want to know why we're here. One of the big questions which the ministers answered, it said, it's not sabotage, these are technical problems. Are you convinced of that?
Yes, I think, not being biased because I'm an engineer and so on, yes, I think from the evidence given and having come from generation myself and being aware of the circumstances, I'm more than reasonably convinced that it is technical and not sabotage. But of course you can't, life is such that you can't rule that out even if it's 1%. But I'm more than reasonably comfortable it's not sabotage. And so pursuant to that comment, let me qualify my surprised comment.
Yes.
I was not surprised that we went back into load shedding. I was surprised that we had this load shedding on Friday in terms of that half an hour that I described to you. Why I say that, Eskom and the ministry and the minister, and I've been saying it a number of times, that because, albeit we've done well, we came to what, plus or minus 300 days of no load shedding. The system still has inherent risk, the generation system. So both Eskom and the ministry have always been saying that. But I didn't expect to go beyond stage 3. I always thought we'll have the sporadic load shedding and we may go up to stage 3. In fact, I was interviewed on Friday night by another station and they asked me the weekend, what's the prognosis? And I kind of said, I don't think we'll go beyond stage 3.
Look at us now.
And then a few hours later, we went to stage 6.
Yeah, and it's just so concerning because you've got to look at the technicalities then of how that jump is possible. And I'm keen to hear your thoughts on it. We're hearing that 4 units were lost at Camden in Mpumalanga. That's, I think, a hydraulic valve. And then 10 units out of commission. This is as Kuberg Unit 1 was also taken offline. How do we have so many things going down?
Right. Let me explain that.
Yes.
And let me try and keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
I know the minister and the Eskom team try to do that. Let me try and keep it as simple as possible because, as our opening remark, the generation system is one of the most complex engineering machinery and complex engineering systems that you can get, right? And it's very integrated. So just to keep it simple, let's start from here. It was a major incident. So in a major incident, you have direct causes and you have root causes. I think the minister alluded to that. The direct causes of load shedding up to stage 6 today was simply supply did not meet demand, right? Why did not supply meet demand? We had a number of units that tripped. We had 10 units that came off the grid, and those 10 units very simply equated to about plus or minus 4,600 megawatts. So we had 4,600 megawatts taken off from Friday, 5 o'clock Friday afternoon, and about 1 a.m. on Saturday morning. And that was a combination of Majuba power station, one of the biggest power stations, 5 units, that's 3,000 megawatts. We had Medupi, another 800 megawatts taken off, and we had 4 units of Camden, that's 4 by 200, 800 megawatts. So that's about 4,600. So you had that taken off the grid. So supply didn't meet demand. That's the direct cause. The indirect, the root cause was very simply that at Majuba, we had maybe a bit technically, a transformer that overheated on the balance of plant system. So you have 2 main systems. You have the main plant, you have the boilers and the turbines, etc., and then you have the balance of plant, which supplies water, air, oil to all of the other 6 units. Unfortunately, in the balance of plant, because it's common, it supports all the units, when you have an hiccup in the balance of plant, then there's a cascading of events that affects all the other units.
Right.
So very simply, you had a transformer overheat. It impacted on compressor being delivered or not being delivered. Get to the point, it led to 5 units, one after the other one, just coming off the grid. And the system does that because of safety reasons. That's one. Then you'll argue why Medupi, I think it's about 500 kilometers away, why did Medupi come off the grid? Medupi came off the grid is what we call under frequency challenge. Now, just to keep it simple, South Africa runs at 50 hertz frequency of electricity. All your TV screens, your clocks, etc. So when it's at 50 hertz, the system is balanced. When you lose supply, like in this case, then your frequency starts to drop, under frequency.
Right.
So what happens is the existing generation units try to, let me be simple about it and simplistic, try to push so that you keep the frequency up. So Medupi probably tried to do that unit, and it overheated. And once it overheated, being a complex engineering system, the internal safety kicked in, and it tripped that unit. And that's 800 megawatts. So that's how Medupi came up. With Camden, 4 units, it's a very old station, first built in 1967. We had a small little hydraulic valve that went on the blink. And that hydraulic valve supplies cooling water to the other units. So when this thing went on the blink, it affected the cooling water, and you need cooling water, right? So when the system didn't have cooling water, the safety system kicked in, and it tripped those 4 units. So that's why we had 10 units tripped, 4,600 megawatts, and we escalated from stage 3 Friday afternoon to stage 6 on Saturday morning.
Sunday morning.
Yes.
And I need to deal with the questions that the everyday South African might be asking themselves here. We've heard before, you might remember, the wet coal situation. And here we are after a week of heavy rains in various parts of the country and then stage 6 load shedding. Any link?
No, not to my opinion, because wet coal, remember when coal gets delivered to a power station, to the bunkers, it's undercover. And generally, I'll go back to my days, you had plus or minus 20 days of stock, and I'm assuming it's still the same. And that stock is generally kept undercover. So wet coal should not really be a material problem, excuse the pun. But from a coal perspective, what could be an issue is when you get rocks and all that being delivered, poor quality coal. But wet coal, to me, should not be a problem for the reasons I mentioned, because it's kept undercover. So by the time it gets into the bunkers, it should be reasonably dry.
Yeah, we needed to ask that because there's a lot of curiosity around it. Let's talk about what's coming, Prof, because I think that's what's important for people. The minister's saying today that while this bout of load shedding should come to an end by the end of this week, we're crossing fingers and hoping that really is the case. But moving forward, talk to us about output of new power that's coming onto the grid, the possibility of us seeing extended sort of relief. Another 300 days, is that possible?
Yeah, maybe just to finish off this load shedding. So the Eskom team did well. By 6 a.m. this morning, I think they had 6 units back on the grid. The 2 units were coming back this afternoon. And I think by Tuesday, all 10 units should be back. And I think they're going to review the stage 6 by tomorrow, Tuesday. So we could be dropping from stage 6 below probably to stage 3. And by the end of the week, we should be over this. Now, going forward, now this is where the National Electricity Crisis Committee, and I'm also assisting them for the last 2 years, they've been focusing on this. So they've been focusing on new generation because we need new electrons. Then we need demand-side management. So they're focusing on demand-side management. And pursuant to that, they wanted to bring the private sector in. So all 3 of those initiatives are being done at a fast pace, and obviously to fix generation, which happened, and we've got the 300 days. But where the pace is not going well is the new generation. So we're not getting large quantities of new electrons on the grid at a pace and scale that we would like to, and that's for various reasons. The legislation, albeit it's improved, it's taking a bit long. Lots of the bidders, developers who were shortlisted couldn't close off financially, so that delayed it. And the other important point which reared its head is that the national grid, which is the transmission grid and the distribution grid, is severely constrained and congested. And to keep it simple, I've coined the term, I call it a constipated grid. So the national grid is constipated. So unfortunately, even if tomorrow we get, by a swing of the wand, 10,000 megawatts or 15,000 megawatts, we cannot accommodate it reasonably easy in the grid because it's constipated. And so we need more capacity. We need actually 14,000 kilometers of new lines, which comes at about 500 billion rand. So the fiscus is constrained. It's not easy to get that money. So we need to look at technologies, for example, that would assist us in getting, squeezing more electrons from the existing wires. That's one. And of course, to try and push more wires. That's the one. Then we also need to look at getting more dispatchable technologies. Fine, we support renewables because of net zero and all of that, but renewables alone will not get us to net zero. That's confirmed by international bodies. So what we need gas and we need nuclear. Actually, nuclear is green. It's the second most greenest technology to hydro. So we had a nuclear webinar hosted by the Presidential Climate Commission the other day. And there were varying views, but we need nuclear and gas in the energy mix going forward. And I'm hoping that the Integrated Resource Plan 2024 will talk to that.
All right. I wish we had more time. I really, really do. But I appreciate this, and thank you so much for talking us through the engineering, how complex it certainly is. Professor Vally Padayachee, they're saying we might see a reduction to stage 3. Let's see what happens. It's been such a pleasure having you in studio.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Professor Vally Padayachee, of course, is a former Eskom executive manager speaking to us this evening. Newsroom PM, the late edition continues on the other side of the stage.